And do you want me to start or do you want to start?
I'll start with welcome, everybody. We were just saying that there are some competing interests today and PDs happening and whatever. So we are a much smaller group than we normally are, but that's okay. We're going to progress like normal, and we will have, I guess, more opportunities for people to chat, I guess, right? Look at the silver lining in that. We have 2 more sessions together. We have this session, and then we have one at the end of May, and then that is the end of our time together this year. So isn't that crazy when you start looking, like counting down the weeks, and like I was looking at my calendar, like, oh my gosh, there's only this many weeks left to get everything fit in that you need to accomplish. So we are happy for those of you here, and those of you who chosen to watch on video. Awesome. Happy you are watching the video, and make sure to submit your pay form. Okay. All right, Miss Nicole, we are going to start off today by talking about our homework. And again, it is optional homework. So I know people feel bad if they didn't do their homework. If you didn't do your homework, this is not a penalty class. Totally fine if you didn't do your homework, but wanted to check in with anybody who did and had something to share. The homework was, I put it there on the slides for you, completing the reading of chapters 24 through 30, which were more edu protocols, potentially trying an edu protocol with a class, or working on a coaching plan for your own school or department or yourself or your team or whatever made the most sense in your job scope. So we were just going to do this because it's a small group, just kind of out loud. Is there anybody willing to share, or I should say it that way, who is willing to share what they did for their homework?
I can share if you want.
I can feel the enthusiasm in your voice.
Hey, Taylor.
Taylor, you get a gold star.
Thank you. So I've been using it a lot lately. And kind of like I asked my students what they like, and they've said they like the Iron Chef quite a bit. And so I've been doing that, and I've done it different ways. I've done it where like I have table groups, so groups of 4, I'll read something different. And I've also done it where my 9 different table groups, I'll read something else and teach the class. So I've tried it both the different ways, and I don't think there's any bad way. They were both interesting ways to do it. And then I've had them tell me what different secret ingredients to try, and they've liked some more than others. So it kind of switches it up a little bit, but also similar style, so the kids know what to do, and just tell them what to do, and they go right into it now. So that's been great.
Taylor, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What can you give us the examples of what the secret ingredient would be?
So I mean, one time I just wrote the EQ, they had to answer it. I've done hashtags. I did play I said embed a song that would go with this topic, and that was pretty funny. I said, give me a movie that would go with this topic. I'm social studies, so that was pretty easy. I think the song one was by far the best one, because the groups had to come up with a song that would tell the rest of the class about their topic. It was pretty funny. So I don't know, just keeps them entertained too, or I can just be more academic and answer the EQ so your group knows what we're talking about.
Thank you. I'm gonna do I'm willing to share if I can have a turn. I was chewing on my Starburst earlier, so I had to wait until I was done eating. I'm gonna do the Iron Chef with language arts classes when they come to the library for checkout. We try to do some sort of activity with them, and this group has already done what the LMA has planned for this month, because this group comes twice a month. And so we're gonna do the Iron Chef for their book club books, where they're gonna work with their book club to answer the questions. And then the secret ingredient, I think, is like some connection that they made, that their group all made. But now I kind of want to change it to a hashtag or that sounds super fun too. So I'm excited to try the Iron Chef with classes on Monday.
I can share if nobody else is ready. Okay. All right. I'm Colleen, and I'm a student success coach. So but I tutor some of the kids after school through the migrant program. And I was looking at some of these protocols, and all the kids are different ages. So there's 4 girls, they're all different classes. So I was like, oh, how am I going to get one of these to work? And the 3-act task is one that I had used as a math teacher before. So I've tried that. But then I don't know if any of you get the like Edutopia little emails. Well, one of them was on protocols and like end of the class protocols. And there was one that I thought kind of was similar to what they were teaching us in this book. It was called the rock, paper, scissors. And all the little protocols that they were sharing in the Edutopia article were end of class. And like, what's like something that's a rock that you totally get from like, for my students, I just say, what did you learn today that it's solid like a rock, you totally get it. What's something you can write down for scissors, and what's something that just didn't quite cut it, you didn't get it. And so we did like the rock, paper, scissors protocol, and that's worked really well. And it's nice for the tutoring setting because it helps me try to figure out, okay, what are we going to work on today or talk about? Or
Thank you for sharing, Colleen. That sounds perfect. And like you said, easy for a variety of ages of kids to access that and reflect on their learning. That sounds awesome. Thank you.
I can go next. I'm Shelly. I'm half-time lit, half-time English teacher at Beaverton High School. I sent out like a newsletter, and I sent some like links for different setups for the Frayer model. And I had some social studies teachers that said that they use it all the time and they really love it. But I haven't tried that one in my class, but I have been doing I've done a couple of times with the Iron Chef. And so we were getting ready to read the book Animal Farm. So I had them do some research, and it worked out really well. The kids were engaged and it was fun.
The Iron Chef getting a lot of love. Thank you for sharing that link to the article, Colleen. That's perfect.
I spent I spent some time going down the rabbit hole on the EduProtocols website and looking at all the templates that they have, and then really wanting to go to Laguna Beach to go to a professional learning, and also maybe to go to the beach. So there's like a ton of like template resources on their website too, that was a whole rabbit hole of time for me yesterday.
Did you find
Someone-
it? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, somebody in this group told me last time about the Facebook group. And so I joined that. And so there's lots of teachers that are sharing resources. So I'm just hoping to have some time to kind of go back through and kind of organize a lot of the materials that are there, because it's some great ideas.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing. Those of you who are able to share about your homework, hopefully you're finding things in that EduProtocols book that are applicable for your grade level and easy and replicatable.
Replicable.
That's the word. That's the word I want, that you can just say, hey, Iron Chef, boom, here we go. Here's what we're going to do. Just again, saving that direction time. Okay, we are going to go ahead.
Really quickly, I just wanted to say, like, to reiterate again, if you're in this group and you're like, why did we spend so much time on the EduProtocols? I thought this was more about the coaching. And I think to go back to like Suzanne's example, she is a coach, and she is going to be using one of the protocols with the language arts team or whatever. That's the reason we wanted to highlight this book and do a book study, because not only can it help some of our friends that are taking this coaching group, but are teachers, classroom teachers, and it's something you can do in your own classroom, but you should have ideas in your toolbox if you are a coach, enabled in order to like go and give some examples of things that other people could try. So this was just a way to just fill your toolbox with more ideas. I just want to reiterate that one more time. If you were wondering, why are we doing this book study? What does this have to do with anything? That was the main idea behind it.
And another reminder that there are subject-specific books. I don't remember how many or what subjects they are. Nicole, do you remember? There are edu protocols for.
I think like math and science. There might be one for social studies. I actually saw on Instagram a week ago that the author John Carippo is actually going to be opening a charter school based on edu protocols. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And I'm looking here on Amazon. There is that we gave you book 1. There is a book 2 that has generic activities, as well as others. So anyway, just wanted to drop that little nugget if you had forgotten that piece, so that you could look and see if there's a subject specific book that maybe matches for a specific teacher or team or whatever.
So Nicole made me feel bad, so now I have to talk. Because I gave a tiny mini PD to our staff when I was told, say, the night before that, oh, by the way. And anyway, I did the little Frayer lesson model with them, but they loved the books. And actually, with Taylor's help, we did order some of those content specific books for some of our staff, and they're really getting into them. So I'm super excited about that. I think there's a language arts one either coming out this summer, maybe. Anyway, I am also an academic coach at Highland Park, and I have gotten some of our teachers into using, particularly the worst prezzo ever has been very popular. And some of our language arts teachers like the Boca Chuca thing. So we are dipping our toes into the protocols.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Carrie, is it my turn to start talking a little bit about coaching activities?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so our plan for the remainder of the time really is to do a brief overview of these coaching activities. And then I actually digitized from, instead of the workbook, I think I took from Elena Aguilar's The Art of Coaching and photocopied the certain sections that we want you to take a look at that go over all of these coaching activities. So we're going to have you guys read those pages and then and go into a breakout room and kind of discuss them and then come back out and talk about it a little bit with the rest of us. So I feel like as we move forward, I know that the year is coming to a close, but thinking about what your responsibilities as a coach could be and what those different activities might look like, especially if you were taking a look at the coaching plan and thinking about your own personal coaching plan, then these activities would be really helpful in kind of like zeroing in what is important to you as a coach and what are things that will fit for you and your role. Again, realizing that we do have some teachers and we have some academic coaches, and we have some lit, so we're kind of all across the board here. But there are some things that you can do even if you are a classroom teacher within like your department or your team. So the first one would be observations. I know that Carrie and I had some grand plans in the original thought process of this coaching cohort to provide substitute time or money or even our own selves to come in and take over your class so that you could go and observe. I don't know, we'd have to look maybe at the budget to see if in the time remaining that we have, if that's still something that could be in the works. I do know that that's a major benefit for jobs like what Carrie and I have, to be able to go into different buildings and see some of our colleagues in a process of teaching. I love to observe, and you know, as a coach, you would be going in with a specific focus and hopefully collecting information to provide feedback and to debrief. But just going and observing colleagues, I always learn so much from doing that. So I don't know, that's something Carrie and I probably would need to talk about. If there was someone that was interested though, let us know and we can see what we can do. Providing feedback. I think the thing with the feedback is, as a coach, you want to make sure that you've built some relationship and that the teacher actually trusts you, to go into a point where you might be critical of some things or be able to provide feedback that isn't just positive. I love critical feedback, and I know that that's really sometimes hard for people to provide. They don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but we learn so much when things are actually more critical than if everything's just constantly a yes and a positive, right? So the other thing too is if you haven't built a relationship and haven't built the trust, then sometimes I think it's hard to find the right phrasing or the way to like approach a critical response or critical feedback. So sometimes you have to work on that. Think about it ahead of time. In terms of modeling, this one's kind of interesting because you need to make sure that you're not, we think about it, I think good PD models, and you might not even be aware of it. But you have to be careful with it to not use it, to overuse it, or you have, like, if you're using it with such subtlety that people don't recognize it, then you have to have a way to kind of call it out. Sometimes I've put, you know, like in the slides off to the side, I might do a little, you know, like, just to let you know, we're modeling da, 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 right? Like sometimes it's so subtle that it goes unnoticed. So you do have to be careful when you're modeling things. If you are true to form with modeling, you also want to ask for feedback on what you are modeling and how it felt. When I do it right and I go through that process and I've modeled something, and then I ask for people to think about, how did you feel in that situation? How might your students feel in that situation? And like really tie it back to some emotions, that can also be really helpful. In terms of elbow teaching, I really love this model or this process, side-by-side teaching. Oftentimes though, I'll go into elbow teaching or side-by-side teaching, and I think that it's going to turn out that way. And sometimes the other teacher just thinks I'm there to take over the class, and they go sit in the corner and grade papers and don't like participate. So that is one thing to like really be clear and set up guidelines and expectations ahead of time. I know Carrie's been in that situation before too, where you know, you thought you were co-planning with someone else, and that you were going to come in and do this amazing lesson, and then they just looked at it as like maybe an extra prep time or something. And so you want to just make sure you prep that ahead of time. As a teacher in this situation, I think the easiest thing would be to sit in your department meetings and or team meetings and do some co-planning, co-lesson planning and unit planning. And that's, I think, one of the easiest ways for you to kind of do even also the same thing that's on the next line, the on the spot coaching, where you're kind of subtly working in some different ideas and maybe trying to change things up a little bit. I know I was having some conversations this morning about how isolating, especially at the secondary, but especially at the high school level, how isolating it can be. You get into your silos and you get into this like cycle of department meeting after department meeting, and you don't necessarily have outside sources or influences coming in to kind of change up a practice. And, you know, that's when we start seeing syllabus that haven't changed in 15, 20 years. So I think that that's a really subtle way to start to introduce new techniques or ideas. And that on the spot coaching, that's hard because the trust has to exist first before you can, they understand that you're trying to, because otherwise it can sometimes be on the spot coaching can sometimes be a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Not presumptuous. What's the word I'm looking for?
Off-putting.
Yeah. But that other word, when someone's like exerting
criticism,
it's like when someone's like exerting power over you, and it's
Patronizing.
patronizing.
there you go.
There you go. That's the word I was looking for. Patronizing. Thank you. Yeah. You don't want it to come off as patronizing. So that one's a little bit tricky. You have to really think like, it's more of the, like, what if we tried kind of thing versus or I was thinking about trying in my own class, instead of, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's kind of like a around the back, around the corner kind of a deal. It's just a trickier one. Field trips can be the same to me as observations, because I think Maybe they're thinking in their terminology here that observations is like going to see someone teaching down the hall, whereas a field trip would be like going to see someone teach in a different building. And sometimes even when you get to see people teaching in different districts is also quite interesting as well. Shared reading would just be like, like as Colleen said, oh, I saw this article, that was talking about these different end of class protocols. That's so simple and so easy to bring some new ideas into a conversation. So I think shared reading is actually a very good gateway into simple coaching. I feel like this last one, looking at data, I love data, and who would have ever thought, because I'm not a maths person. And as an English teacher, I think I never would have thought that data would be so helpful for me, but I also can totally understand that many of us have hit a wall with data and don't want to look at data, don't want to talk about data, or maybe don't really know what to do with data. Like, okay, you're telling me that, my students only talk 10% of their day in academic phrasing and language. And I know you're telling me that I need to do something about that, but I don't really know what the transfer is, right? So I don't know, looking at data, I feel like in our district sometimes puts a bad taste in people's mouths. But if we can get to a point where we can have some really good conversations about the data that we're seeing and then what to do, how to translate it, I think that that's really been transformative personally for my teaching style. So I like it, but I can understand where people would be like, ooh. So I guess just think about who you're dealing with. And if you know that that's a sore spot, that I would stay away from it. Okay, so that's just like a brief overview, but I think we're going to have more information as we take a look. None of the readings here are super long. They're all very, very short. They all are linked here in our slide deck. And so maybe if Carrie can put that in the chat, if people don't have access to the slide deck, so you can get all of the links here. But what I think we're going to do is Carrie has made the breakout rooms, and they're all titled with these different options. And I think based on the people that we have, we need groups of 2 partners. We're going to put you in partners. Does that work, Carrie? You and I might have to take one.
Happily.
Yeah. So anyways, what you're going to do is read through the pages and then talk within your breakout room how you might see this strategy working or implementing it into your building or department. How would you try to do this strategy with a teacher, or maybe even the opposite? Like, what kinds of obstacles do you see this making, how you wouldn't use it or why you wouldn't use it? And then we're going to come back and you're going to share out with the larger group, if that sounds okay. We're going to self-select, I think. Is that what we're doing, Carrie? Okay.
Yep. And about how long?
I don't know. Can we do like 15 minutes?
Yep.
Is that too long?
No, I think that works.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and you have a timer set. I'll open all the rooms for us.
Okay.
You have the slide link.
Yes.
Same.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yep.
Again.
Okay.
And I think everyone is back.
Really? Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Is there anyone that's willing to go first and kind of share what they learned? Just a little 60-second share out to the rest of us about your specific section, or should I call people?
I can go.
Yay, Taylor again.
I mean, I'm the first one on there, so.
Okay, great.
So we read about observations and it had 3 things for it. Focus was one. So make sure you're just looking at one thing when you're observing another teacher. And then 2, have a data collection tool. And one thing they recommend was just a 2-column chart, with one side being what the teacher says and does, and the other side's what the student or students say and do. And then the third thing is a debrief over what transpired in the classroom. And they just said, be really mindful about maybe just talking about what the focus was and not the stuff that wasn't already agreed upon, so you don't lose like that trust with the teacher.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Did you guys talk a little bit about how you might use that strategy with other teachers or other people?
I think we were talking about how like we want to be mindful over just like the one thing and focus on something agreed upon, and we're just going to give feedback on that part. So I don't know, like we've both been observed, and it's kind of stressful when someone brings up something that wasn't already talked about, and maybe they missed it because it actually goes on later. And so please just talk about that one thing that we've already talked about prior to our meeting or
Yeah.
prior to the class.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because especially at the middle school level, right? Like usually your lessons are going from one day to the next because you don't have that much time. Awesome. Okay. How about giving feedback? Group on giving feedback? Anyone?
I'll speak unless one of the other of you would like to talk about it. Basically, like kind of what you went over in the in your little summary before we started the reading. It's really important to declare intention, let whoever it is you're giving feedback, remind them like, I'm giving you feedback because I want to be helpful to you and help you learn and grow. I wrote it down as be kind, like just be really specific in the language that you use, that you're being kind. And then the third thing that I wrote down was that taking the time to reflect on how the feedback was received. And then in our discussion, we talked about the need to be aware of where your teachers are coming from. If they've been in a place where observation and feedback is negative, and there's always kind of that undertone of mistrust or suspicion in why are you giving me this feedback, then it's not going to be received as well, even if you have a good relationship. So it's about your whole school culture or your whole district culture, not just your trust and your relationship with that individual. So I think those were the key pieces that we talked about.
Awesome. Anyone else? That was a big group. Any other additional feedback or thoughts?
Excellent synopsis.
Okay. And you kind of did talk, thank you, Suzanne. You did talk a little bit about some of the roadblocks. So awesome. Okay. Carrie and I took on modeling because there wasn't anyone in that group. Carrie, you did a bullet or highlight of some of the main things, and I'll talk a little bit about craft maybe.
Yeah, happily. Apologize if some louder teachers walk into this room. They're having a break here at the PD I'm at. Modeling. One of the things that we talked about was making sure that teachers can't use that, well, you did that, but I could never do that escape line. And one of the things was to make sure that whatever you are modeling is within their zone of proximal development. It is the next step that they are ready for, that it's not something too far in advance, too pie in the sky, that it's not attainable. That whatever you're modeling is actually something the client wants to see. The teacher is interested in blah or wants to add blah to their teaching repertoire. So they have buy-in, right? There's not just you showing them something you think they should do. It's something teacher choice, right? Them wanting to improve in. That the teacher has something to do while observing you. They're taking notes, they're listing things, they have some purpose while they are watching the model lesson. A debrief within 24 hours so that everything is fresh, so that you can talk about what went down. And this one was interesting. Nicole and I spent some time on this one, that the focus, and because master teachers tend to teach with your personality or charisma or who you are as a person, that not being the focus of your model lesson. So whoever's giving the model lesson, not that it doesn't have your personality, but that's not the focus. The focus is the skill. So you're just too charismatic and too fun up there that somebody's more inclined to say, man, I couldn't do it like that, right? And that's not the point. The point is modeling the skill. So taking it down a notch, whatever it is that your flair, right? I'm going to go with flair. Not that you don't have your own personality, but that isn't the focus of the lesson. And then at the end, getting your client to giving their feedback on the whole modeling process and what they thought and how that could, the next steps, right, in their own world.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think we got stuck on the personality bit because I do think teaching is such an art form or craft. And I do think a part of it is us being able to sell the content. And so I think it's hard to like divest from that. So I think that's interesting. And I do think both in the observation and the modeling one, being very specific, having a focus, doing one small thing instead of a huge whole lesson or whatever is kind of the difference between the modeling and like a co-teaching thing, I think. All right. Well, teaching, lesson, and unit planning and on the spot coaching, we kind of lumped you guys all together. Thoughts on that one? Share out, please.
We sort of talked about how elbow teaching and on the spot coaching seemed fairly similar, and also pretty tricky. And we talked a lot about how the trust would really have to be there, but that the immediate rewards might seem a little more obvious. And then the lesson and unit planning, Christine was talking about how that could actually maybe be the first thing that a teacher did with a coach. And then the coach could offer, you know, oh, well, now that we've planned this lesson, maybe I could elbow teach it with you, or I could do on the spot coaching with you to kind of tie it together, and lead in a little bit more naturally rather than, you know, popping in and hey, make sure you give them 5 minutes or 5 minutes, 5 seconds of wait time. But it was really interesting. Elbow teaching and on the spot coaching seemed like it would be challenging, but also like have a lot of immediate reward potentially.
I was also kind of a bigger group. Anything else to add? Nope.
I would just quickly add that you know, you just would need to be careful, and that maybe use some of your, if you're doing on the spot coaching, save your sticky notes perhaps for some of that, and just be mindful of the situation and the person, and of course their zone of proximal development at the time. So, but an interesting read for sure.
Great.
And there was one other thing that I was thinking about was if you, and maybe this ties more back to modeling, but if you model a lesson and then during the debrief can give yourself feedback on what you noticed went well and what you would change for next time, you know, that helps build trust in the relationship there too, and makes the feedback feel like it's part of your relationship with the other person.
Well, we know reflection is so important to the learning cycle, right? And that you're giving critical feedback on your own teaching, I think is good. It's good reflection. Okay. And then Lori, are you okay to share about field trips? We didn't have anyone doing the last one, shared reading and data and stuff, but Lori was taking a look at field trips.
Yeah. So, field trips is, you know, leaving your own room to observe another teacher who's probably most likely doing an exemplar job of what the look-fors are. So a couple of things that they recommended is that when you're setting up a field trip, you want to actually know that the teacher that you'll be observing is actually doing a great job at the specific thing that you're looking for. So if you don't have a lot of knowledge of the teachers like in your building or at other buildings, you might just listen to one person say like, hey, so-and-so is a great kindergarten teacher, you should go check them out. But just being a great kindergarten teacher is not super specific. So having something very clear that you're looking for that the client needs. So for example, like they have flawless classroom routines that are maintained throughout the day. So you can observe, hey, every time a student needs to go to the bathroom, they just get up, they sign the sheet and they walk out, and it's never an issue, that sort of thing. And then to be clear about what the expectations are for the look-throughs. And I have experience with this because one time we did a field trip to the high school to see like the connection between 8th grade and 9th grade and what students should be expected to do by 9th grade. And like seeing their lessons wasn't really meaningful because it's like everyone else's lessons, but then being able to talk to the teachers and them saying like, oh, in their essays, I'm noticing they're saying this, but they should be doing this. That sort of thing, where we can take that back to the 8th grade and say, hey, if you want to be 9th grade ready. So that sort of thing.
All right. Great. Awesome. So I'll keep these links active, on the slide deck. So if you wanted to come back and read any of the others, feel free. I do think just on a personal side note, I just spent the month of March, and Carrie did it even before that, working on doing equity facilitation. And I did not necessarily walk away from that training feeling like I was good and confident in being an equity facilitator. And I kept on coming back to Elena Aguilar's work and thinking about what she has in the art of coaching in terms of helping you become a better coach. And I know we touched on it. We've really tried to dive into it, but if you feel like, you're looking for more, I have, I think, experienced enough to know that I think Elena Aguilar's work and the art of coaching is one of the better ones that's out there. And it would be worth it, I think, to potentially buy and read, even if it can. I like let me rephrase that. I really like the workbook better than her actual book, but this came from the book. So if you found that this was very helpful and goes in depth on things, then that book would be maybe something to look into. All right, Carrie, do you want to talk about homework?
I want to. We're going to wrap up. I know we only have a few minutes left, but we have one more session, like I said, and on our last session, we have another opportunity to be paid for doing a little homework. And we're going to go ahead and present the same options as last time. Complete reading. These are the last chapters in the book. So the rest of the Edu protocols is the reading. Another offer to try one of the Edu protocols in your class if you haven't yet, or with a class. And then finally is that developing a coaching plan, or think through what your coaching plan is if and when you know your job or your department or your team for next year. So what would be important to you as a coach? So we're going to present those same opportunities, new reading, try a different Edu protocol if you haven't, before the end of May and our last meeting. We're going to go ahead and hop into homework, our to-do list, our to-do list now. And our normal to-do list has you, registering in KickUp if you haven't already registered in KickUp. Confirming your attendance for being here today. And that is on our slide. And I will stick that in the chat for you. The little code that you need to put in there. Here it is. To prove that you were actually here today. And then after you've handled your KickUp stuff, then we're going to jump into our pay form. And your pay form is the On Your Honor system. So if you are here, which you are, if you are here or you are watching this on a video, you get 1 hour for, you do not get 1 hour. I apologize. Today is a staff development day. I said that wrong. We pay you if you attend after school. We do not able to pay for attending this meeting, but we did work around that and make sure that we were able to pay you up to 2 hours for doing your homework piece. So that is for you to fill out on your little form there that Nicole is showing, and she is copying the little number into beautiful. And remember, please, to put it in option B, which is the per diem. And that's the one you want because that is your hourly rate. So put your whatever hours you completed in terms of the homework, not attending this session. At our last meeting, it is after school, I believe. So I will be able to pay you for attending that session in addition to doing up to 2 hours of homework. So there's an opportunity to earn 3 hours of pay in May should you do homework and attend the session. When
Okay,
you're
Carrie
done,
needs to leave. Carrie needs to leave. I will finish the rest of it. Okay, bye, Carrie.
Bye.
Stop. Yeah, bye. Okay, so as you finish your pay form, just remember to email that to Carrie, please. And make sure you put your name on it and your date. And I think that should be everything. But I'm still here if you need to ask any questions. And I think that's it. So homework and pay form.
Nicole, what
Yeah.
are the start and end dates for the work? I always forget what to put there. Like, do we
Oh.
put the whole month of April? Do we put?
Sure, you can. That's fine. And then put today's date.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. Hopefully you had a good PD day and enjoy working from home tomorrow.
Thanks, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.